हेलो फ्रेंड्स, केजी क्लासेस में आपका स्वागत है। आज हम आपको अलेक्जेंडर पोप के लॉन्ग आंसर के बारे में बताएंगे। क्वेश्चन, राइट ए नोट ऑन द कैरेक्टर ऑफ बेलेंडा। आंसर, द हीरोइन ऑफ द पोएम। हेडिंग है, एज डिक्लेयर्ड इन द डेडिकेशन इट इज टू बेलेंडास नेम दैट पोप रेजेज इटर्नल ट्रॉफीज इन द concluding lines to he says, for after all murderers of your Eve, when after millions slain yourself shall die, when those fair sons shall set as set they must, and all those traces shall be laid in dust, this lock the muse shall consecrate to fame, and mist the stars inscribe Belinda's name. Obviously, therefore, Belinda is a heroine of the poem. We see her luxuriously slumbering on till noon. When her lapdog shock awakens her, we are present at her toilet and watch the progress of the sacred rites of pride. We see her with a gay party on its way up the Thames to Hampton Court, smiling impartially upon the well-dressed youths and that crowd about her. She is very type of liveliness, tact and conquerity. Next पढ़ेंगे बेलिंडास मिस अरेवेला फार्मर. It is through Belinda that the poet laughs at the little unguarded follies of the female sex. Belinda is the Miss Arevella farmer of real life. She was born between the year 1688 to 1690. She married Francis Perkins of Ofton Court in 1714 or early in 1715. According to George Holden, she begot 4 sons from this marriage. She died in 1738. She was an acknowledged beauty of her time by 1772. When Pope wrote this poem, Miss Mitford, speaking of Miss Farmer's portrait taken at the age of 12 or 13, says in the Ladies' Companions, the face is most interesting, a high, broad forehead, dark eyes, richly fringed and deeply set, a straight nose, pouting lips, and a short chin finely rounded. The dress is dark and graceful, with a little white turned back about the neck and the loose sleeves. Altogether, I never saw a more charming girlish portrait whose with so much of present beauty and so true a promise of more of that order too high and intellectual which great poets love. This portrait is reproduced in Miss Sharp's History of Ofton Court along with 2 other portraits taken probably soon after his marriage. In the first of these, she is depicted as young and charming. There are 2 long curling locks of her auburn hair resting on her shoulders, while around her neck is the cross which Jews might kiss and in field adore. The next portrait, said to be by Sir Godfrey Kneller, is of a woman in the prime of her beauty and grace. The pose is very elegant and color charming. In it, she still wears a fashionable love lock of the day. All the 3 portraits of Judge Miss Sharp have much individuality and many points of resemblance. Hair of a warm golden shade, a slender neck and sloping shoulders, almond shaped eyes with well formed level eyebrow are characteristics of them all. In fact, the representation of beauty which artists have handed down to us, namely the above mentioned three portraits, bear out the praises of contemporary writers. Next heading है a creation of wit, beauty and poetry. The Belinda of the poem, however, is a creation of beauty, wit and poetry. She wakes up at 12 and the first thing which grasps her attention is a love letter. Then she paints and decorates her with diamonds, ornament, perfumes and puffs, powders and patches, putting on all her arms of beauty and grace, charm and attraction. She starts for the conquest of lovers. Her smiles are sunny, her manners polished, her eyes large with graceful ease, easy and pride. She cherishes two lovely locks of hair to destruction of mankind. She goes for a sail and then to the Hampton Court and participates in singing, laughing, giggling. There she always play a game of ombre and then takes a coffee and get one of her locks wrapped by the Baron. Persuaded by Thalestris, she is in a very passionate mood of anger and grief, attack Lord Peter first with a charge of snuff and then with her deadly bodkin. Her party triumphs, but she is unable in regaining her lost paradise of love. Next, an object both of mockery and adoration. Belinda is the most richly ambiguous character. She is both an object of ridicule and a beauty which compels admiration. As a representative of the class of aristocracy, she is mocked at, but as an individual of great charm, she is also meant to be taken as an emblem of charm deserving of our adoration. On the one hand, she is mocked at, on the other, she is praised as a woman of beauty and charm beyond measure. She is almost presented as the goddess of beauty and youth. Next heading है an ambiguous character representative of her class. This ambiguity is inherent in the very conception of Belinda. She originally represents Lady Farmer of actual life whom Lord Peter had offended by cutting her lock. Lord Peter in the poem is represented by the Baron. Both the families of Farmers and Peters, though inimical to each other, were friendly to Pop, and Pop's adjective of bringing the families together would not have been gained had he presented them satirically as individuals. Therefore, Pop praises them, but later on, when he decided to expand the original tale into full-fledged mock epic, Belinda and Lord Peter appeared to him as typical representative of their class, and he filled in his satirical touches. Next heading है both the end and means of the poem. From the opening lines, it immediately becomes clear that Belinda is the central character, the heroine of the mock epic. The mention of Belinda is made in the fourth line, but introduction to her comes much later in lines 13 and 14. Here in the fourth line, Belinda is accorded a place which is higher than any other. She is both the end and means of the poem. She is also the inspiration to the poet. If she inspires, she is accorded the status of the goddess of poetry. Later, she becomes the goddess of charm and beauty. At other places, she is the representative of the degenerated, decadent aristocratic class. In her character, these two contradictory elements of being satirical figures to be laughed at and a goddess to be admired are juxtaposed, balanced, sometimes even blended delicately. This makes for the richness of her character. It is complex, not simple. It is not possible to dispose of Belinda with a few words. Her character in the poem seems to be larger than any prose version can make of it. Heading her revisioning and dazzling beauty. The first thing that Pope tells us about Belinda in her ravaging, dazzling beauty in highly fantastical image. When she opened her eyes late in the morning, the brightness of her eyes was so much brighter than the bright sun in the sky that it seemed to eclipse the sun. It is exaggeration in the manner of Donne's metaphysical school of poetry, but it serves the purpose of suggesting Belinda's inestimable, ineffable charm. Next heading है her habits. She is a later riser and ideal lazy moony young girl, bestowing her affection on her lap dog. Even when it is 12 o'clock in the day, she is not in a mood to get up. She still has her downy pillow pressed and goes dreaming about duping and intriguing men. She is extremely sophisticated, in love with luxuries and beauty, and seems to have no other interest in life. She gets up past 12 and even not by herself but when licked by her lapdog Sock. There is a satire in the line when Sock, who thought she slept too long, Belinda has left the sense of discretion to the dog, as though the dog must decide it is time for her to wake up. Then on waking up, the first thing that she must do is to make herself up, beautify herself with the aid of cream, rogue powder, Vaseline, etc. The toilet table is so arranged that on waking up, the first thing her eyes must see are the toilet things. The religious woman on waking up would remember Lord God and Jesus and offer some prayer to them, but to Belinda, her toilet table is her church. The cosmetics are her offering in her prayer, and her God is the pagan god of beauty and charm. In order to suggest that to Belinda, toilet is her goddess, and applying cosmetics to herself the best ritual in the service of the goddess. Pope uses religious words like heaven, sacred rites, etc. In fact, she herself becomes the goddess of beauty. From each she nicely cults with curious toil and decks the goddess with the glittering spoil, and to her the sylph gather to serve her. Next reading is her romantic nature. Belinda smiled and all the world was gay. This description of Belinda on the barge sailing on Thames bears faint echoes of Cleopatra in her barge in Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra. The parallelism strengthens the romantic nature of Belinda. She is the personification of romantic attribute and is presented in the idioms of hyperbole. Her charm, physical charm like Cleopatra, makes even religious sanctity irrelevant. The sparkling cross that she bore on her white breast derives its value from her white breast, for which sake both the Jews and the infidels, the non-believers in Christianity, would have kissed the cross in disguise of their love for her body. But his charm is not merely demeanor, which is in teasing. She wears a lively, alert, and agile look in her eyes and on her face, which reveals the brilliance and intelligence of her mind. She is cautiously courteous to everyone and has cultivated a pleasing gesture for all. It is difficult, nay impossible, to be offended by anything she does or say, for she has no special favorite of her own. She is again, even this respect, like a son. She said her smiles on everyone who comes to her as the sun sets its warmth on everyone, irrespective of any consideration. She is the epitome of grace, composure, and sweetness, and these virtues would hide the fault of any young girl. As for Belinda, she had plentiful of these virtues, plus her physical charm, which would hide any fault in her character. Let to her share some female errors fall, look on her face, and you will forget them all. Heading है flippancy and charm. She has cultivated, nursed her hair well, wears two locks, and fastidiously flaunt them to attract the attention of the admiring men. Those who happen to look at her locks become immediately infatuated and lose their peace of mind. She wears the bell-plated shining lock in equal curl with ringlet and makes them roll on her ivory smooth neck. To her, her locks are the ensnaring labyrinth to entangle love of her admiring man, and she is therefore exceedingly proud of her position in a society full of flippant young lord and dandies. She finds her locks an unfailing instrument of seduction. Heading a satirically human and adorably divine being. The blend of the satirical human and adorably divine marks her characterization till the end of the poem. Indeed, one of her locks, the one wrapped by the baron, disappears in the midst of the final battle to become one of the planetary stars and inscribed Belinda's name among the immortals, but certainly in the portions of the poem from the middle of the second canto to the end of the fifth, she is painted as mainly the satirical figure of the aristocratic class. Next heading is shrewd coquette, a representative of her class. The vices associated with her are many, but it must be noticed that none of the vices is serious one, and Pops, with his hyperbole and mock heroic exaggeration of vices, considerably subdues his satirical intention. Apart from being lazy in getting up in the morning, her abnormal adoration of sock, her her dreamy sentiments about her wishing to outshine all others in netting men for sexual flirtation. Belinda reveals to us her shrewdness, coquetry, and is blind with a sense of arrogance. Above all, Pop means to represent her as an embodiment of self-deception. Belinda behaves in the most alluring manner, her locks flowing about her neck on reaching the Hampton Court with Clarissa. She warmed with the desires for being the cynosure of all eyes. Belinda, now whom thirst of fame invites one to encounter two adventurous knights at Ombre, singly decided their doom and soils her breast with conquest yet to come. Next चढ़ेंगे Belinda at the card game. At the card game, of course, Belinda establishes her superiority in being cleverer, better maneuverer, and an enchanting temptress. The card game is described in terms of sexual allusions and symbols which suggest that Belinda gets from the game the vicarious satisfaction and pleasure of sexual game of flirtation. Sometimes she acts as a temptress, at other times as a virago, and all the time using all her means to defeat the Baron in this game. When she wins, she is overjoyed and bursts out laughingly. The nymph, exulting, fills with shouts the sky, the walls, the woods, and long canals reply. Next पढ़ेंगे an emotional being. This shows her shadowness, fickleness of her mind, lack of restraint, excessively joyful in victory and torrentially tearful in sorrow. When the Baron in his revenge succeeded in cutting the lock of Belinda, she flies to the other extreme of being exceedingly sorrowful and tearful. Then flashed the living lightning from her eyes, and screams of horror rent the afraid skies. This betray childish, superficial, inconstant, fickle mind flying from one extreme of passion to the other and deriving perhaps a secret joy from self-dramatization. Next पढ़ेंगे an element of self-dramatization in Belinda. There is certainly an element of self-dramatization in Belinda which emanates from her constant self-deception, a refusal to see herself as she really is, and pretending to see in herself what she is not. For Pop clearly suggests to us that she may have been pure in her profession, but secretly or unconsciously she was in love with the Baron who cut her lock. If she rages in fury after the lock is cut, it may be to show others that she resents the Baron's act, but in her heart she carries the image of the Baron as the Ariel, symbolizing in a sense her unconscious mind perceives. Suddenly he viewed, in spite of all her art and earthly lover lurking at her heart, she secretly yearned for the love of the Baron. Yet she made a huge row over the Baron's playful act of cutting her lock. From this it follows that her rage resentment and despair expressed at the loss of the log are only hypocritical. Pop, of course, described them with a pathetic force. Her lamentations over her being attracted to the glitter of the court life from this point of view appear only false, and there is also sometimes mocking in the poetry of the lines, a slightly excessive flow of tears, a hyperbole in lamentation that betray what may essentially be called the insincerity of Belinda. And finally, the whole hypocritical prose of Belinda is most comically exposed when Pope makes her lament in these words: O hadst thou cruel been content to seize hairs less in sight, or any hairs but these. If only the pupil had not seen her lock missing, it would not have mattered much. She would not have minded, rather she would have loved if the Baron had cut her some unseen hair of which she alone would have been aware, and if, as according to the logic of the symbols used in the poem, the loss of the lock is the loss of virginity, the lines imply a caustic commentary on Belinda's character. She would not mind the loss of virginity in secret love. Next, a complete lack of spiritual honesty in Belinda. All this suggests a complete lack of spiritual honesty in Belinda. In fact, she, as all aristocratic ladies of the time, lacked the sense of personal honor and cared only for public reputation. Belinda has no sense of moral integrity. Her spiritual values are topsy-turvy. She is spiritually vapid. To her, love and sex are substitutes for church and Christ. She is hardly aware of her soul. She has only sentiments. Next question है, write a note on the character of Lord Peter. ऐडेंगे the origin of Lord Peter. Answer: the man who committed the rape of the lock was Robert the seventh Lord Peter, and the Baron of the poem. He was born in 1689 and was 22 years of age at the time when he ravaged the lock. He married Miss Catherine Walmsley in the following March before the publication of the first version of poem in May 1712, and died of smallpox in 1713. The Baron is also characteristic young man of the period, taking part in the gaiety and abandon of the Hampton Court. He prays to the deity for the fulfillment of his desire of possessing Belinda's lock. He makes an altar of love consisting of 12 vast French romances and other love letters of his former mistresses. He wants to possess it by force or by fraud, and he is able to cut one of her locks by cunningness. Next heading है the hero of the poem. Logically, Belinda is the heroine of the rape of the lock. The Baron is the hero, but his role is so short and minimized in the scheme of the poem that it would be truer to say that the poem has no hero, only heroine. Pope gives to Belinda not only the central but the more predominating place. She pervades the poem from beginning to end. The entire machinery of the supernatural world exists for her. She is both goddess and human, whereas the Baron is only a human being embodying the typical feature of the 18th century aristocratic young man. He is in the poem for the sake of Belinda, but Belinda does not exist in the poem for his sake. The main focus of the poet falls consistently on Belinda, on the Baron and others only when they help illustrate certain aspect of the lady. Next heading is representative of contemporary fops and dandies. But the Baron's importance as a character is next only to Belinda, for insofar as Belinda is the representative of the aristocratic flirt. He is the representative of the fop and dandies of the time. He is wealthy and has plenty of leisure to pursue the wildest of his fancies. He dresses in the latest fashion, frequent Hampton Court, pays compliments to charming ladies, and picks them up for his own pleasure. He is the male flirt in teaching women predisposed to romantic revelry with his soft, sophisticated words, pleasing manners, and sweet promises, none of which he intended to keep. His mission is to enjoy as many pretty women's company as he could manage sportingly. Next heading है a wealthy fop. Fop introduced the Baron to us as a wealthy fop who loves adventures in sex intrigues and is currently possessed with his fancy for Belinda's lock. The superficialities of his nature is parodied in the couplet. The adventurous Baron the brick locks admired. He saw, he wished, and to the prize aspired. The adventurous knight in the Middle Age used to fight with dragons and demons for the hand of his lady love. The adventure of the Baron is to be undertaken for so trivial a thing as the lock of Belinda. The second line of the couplet draw by implication a satirical contrast with Julius Caesar, who used to conquer nations. The Baron's heroism is concerned not with conquering nation but ladies, and in the present case with cutting Belinda's lock. Next चढ़ेंगे a worshipper of Cupid. The foolishness, the superficiality, and the validity of the Baron's character come out most comically in his worshipping at the altar of love. For him, the chief god is the love god, whom he worships in a special rituals to propitiate him with love things. French romances, garters, gloves, and other memories of his former loves. He light the fire at the altar with love letters and pray to love God to bless him with strength and skill. This whole scene again is a parody on the rituals performed by the knight during the Middle Age before he set out in quest of the Grail or on adventure to win the hand of his lady love. The knights of the Middle Ages had deep and abiding faith in God and prayed for his blessing to be able to fight the dragons on the way. The Baron is a typically 18th century knight whose whole adventure is ridiculously concerned with cutting the lock of Belinda Pop by highly exaggerating the mock heroic element in the scene of worship makes the Baron appear foolishly ridiculous. With tender billet ducks he lights the fire and breathes three amorous signs to raise the fire, then prostrate falls and wakes with ardent eyes, soon to obtain and long possess the prize. The foppishness, the intriguing element in each character is fully at work in the card game scene in the Hampton Court. He is a good match for Belinda in the game of flirtation and sexual intrigue. He plays with the same zest as the knight to the olden times used to fight battles with dragons. If he is defeated in the card game, the reason is that Belinda is more intelligent than he and her beauty has taken him in. Next, adding his fondness for coffee. The defeat makes him only revengeful and angry, but not until he has taken a cup of coffee he is bursting with fume. It is characteristics of the Baron that he derives inspiration and strength from coffee and from his own self. This again makes him look mockingly superficial. Next, adding the mock heroic element in the Baron. Then, in cutting the lock, he assumes the pose and gesture of the heroic knight of the past in his killing of the Gants and Gnomes. He proceeds cautiously, barely, as though he is going to perform miracle, and after he has cut the lock and possessed it, he does exclaim in joy as though he has actually performed miraculous feat. His victory speech celebrating the wrath of triumph and exulting in his luck and fortune is highly mocking on his own self. He regards Belinda's lock of hair as his most valuable possession, and this victory he believes will make him immortal. Last heading, his defeat. Thus, the Baron's character is constantly satirical. He is mocked by Belinda, by the situation, and also by his own statements, though unconsciously. Of course, the funniest of his character is in the last scene in which Belinda charges upon him in retaliation in reaction to the application of the snuff. He goes on sneezing, and he is nonplussed by Belinda's attack with looking and hairpin and is ultimately defeated both in the card game and battle game, both symbolizing sex intrigues. Belinda is his superior. He is prepared to return the lock, but the lock itself disappears mysteriously, and his labor thus goes in vain. In short, in the Baron, Pops has painted a highly mocking picture of the conceited, foppish, lascivious, superficial young man of the 18th century aristocratic class. Thanks, best of luck.